Good morning my darlings and welcome to another video on this channel. I'm Annie and today we are going to be making one of these fidget spinner lightning bolt necklaces. We're going to need the usual tools. We've got round nose pliers, chain nose or needle nose pliers, flush cutters, some wire. So I'm using a 0.1mm and a 0.4mm. I'll put the gauges into the description or on the screen. We're going to take about 6 inches of the 0.1mm and this is what you're going to create your frame with. I'm using a silver filled wire for this piece as it's a commission piece for a customer, and with my fingers I'm just gently straightening out the wire and warming it very slightly so it's a bit more malleable, a little bit easier to work. Just pop everything to one side, you don't want a cluttered desk. And then we're going to get going. So we're going to take the 6-inch piece of wire and we're just going to find halfway. I'm doing it by eye, but you of course can use your ruler or tape measure. We're just going to pinch and fold it in half. So here we are just going to open up that little fold a bit and get the kind of classic lightning bolt shape at the bottom there. Just take your time about it, we're not in any rush here. Then take your chain nose or needle nose pliers and clench the wire on the left hand side about 1 centimetre up. Then do exactly the same movement on the other wire around 5mm up, taking the wire across so that they're running parallel to each other. Then on the same wire, the one at the top, we pinch and push upwards with the same kind of spacing, so about 5mm, and then exactly the same on the bottom one, getting you that classic lightning bolt shape for the frame of your fidget piece. Remember, this is your piece that you're making, so spend a little bit of time fiddling with it, make sure that the shape is exactly how you want it. Because silver filled wire is quite soft, I'm going to hammer mine. You do not have to hammer yours. I realise that these are specialist instruments, but if you've got a slab of metal and a hammer, maybe give it a go, see if it's something that you enjoy. I certainly enjoy boshing things. It's one of my favourite parts of jewellery making, but just so you know, I'm not just boshing it, I am gently tapping it, and when we hammer things we are hardening the wire, so we are shaking the molecules up and they are bonding on the inside of the wire, and this will give me a much firmer frame to work with. And when you have a soft wire, that's exactly what you need. I also find it to be quite a therapeutic part of the process as well. Now we're ready to move on to sorting out your weaving wire. So this is your 0.4 wire. I wouldn't go any thicker than that just because it can be quite difficult to manoeuvre, and if you're quite new to the art of wire working and wire weaving, you might as well just make things as easy on yourself as possible. I quite like the phrase, do it once, do it right. Not always possible, but you know, make things easy for yourself. So we're going to take about 16 inches. Take more if you want to, that's no problem at all. You can always keep your scraps and use them in something else. So just snipped it with the flush cutters there, and we're going to get started with weaving the wire into the frame. Taking one end of your weaving wire, you want to have about 1 inch. You may want longer just for the sake of ease of manoeuvrability, but if you do that, take more than 16 inches. And I have chosen here to wrap mine around the bottom. In other ones, I have wrapped on the side where it's a little bit easier, completed the wraps and then slid it round to the bottom. But what you do want is a couple of little coils right on the tip of your lightning bolt. This part is really tricky and really difficult, so take your time about it. Take a deep breath. Sorry if you can hear purring, my cat has just landing himself on my lap and is making biscuits. Use your tools, use whatever you've got to hand, and just breathe. Wire weaving is tricky, it can be quite stressful, it can be very therapeutic, but take your time about it. Once you finish those coils, just snip the end off and tuck your end in. Remember, you're making jewellery, which people are going to be wearing, and you want to make sure that your ends are tucked on the inside of the frame so that we're not damaging anybody's clothing. Here I'm just taking a moment to make sure that my coils are aligned along the bottom. I have 3 coils, so just making sure that middle one is right in the centre. Remember, take your time. And now we're going to start the weave. Take the wire up and through the frame, through the top, and we're going to do a single coil around the wire, and then we're going to take it from under to over the top of the opposing frame wire, through the top of the frame, pushing the wire into the position that you need it, and doing a single coil on that side, and then we're pulling it under and then over the wire on the other side, through the frame again. Make sure that you are aligning your wire to exactly where you want it to go. You tell this weaving wire, you be assertive with your wire and let it know where it's going. The reason we've left the frame open, it's because trying to do a weave inside a closed frame is really tricky. I did make this mistake with this design and thoroughly regretted it. I did achieve what I was looking to achieve, but it was much harder, and I spent the entire time worrying that the wire was going to break because the work that I was asking it to do was causing it to harden, which can mean early snappage, which isn't really the optimum way to work. You'll notice that with each time I do a wrap, I am using my thumbnails just to get it into place. You can use your pliers. There we go. And just keeping it tight and keeping the weave as even as possible. So we're going round the frame wire once. So we're doing 1 coil around the frame wire, and then we are going from underneath to over the top of the opposing wire, and that will create a really beautiful crisscrossy weave effect. This is a really basic and simple weave, perfect for beginners, intermediates and advanced people. When you are doing all the crazy stuff, sometimes it's really nice just to go back to the basics. I'm just going to speed up this part of the process because honestly, you don't want to be sat there watching me weaving slow as you like for ages. You'll get bored halfway through and then you won't have a finished piece. I'm doing the same weave right up until the frame changes direction. And then things get a little bit interesting because this is where you're going to put your fidget bead in. You can decide where it goes. I've tried it in several different places and I liked it in several different places. So do whatever works for you. At this point, we're now at the change in direction. So in order to make up for the greater amount of surface area on the top wire, we need to increase our single coil to 2 coils. So we're going to go 2 coils on the top and then move down to the bottom wire and weave round and do 1 coil, or you may decide to not do any coils there and just simply do the weave up to the top one where we do 2 coils again. And by doing this, we are accommodating for that wider edge on the outside and for the fact that it's smaller on the inside. Once you've done that and you've kind of got around those corners, we're now at the point that we're going to add our fidget bead, which is so exciting. I've decided to put mine pretty much as central as possible. I've got a black agate, which is for, this commission piece is for a fellow small business owner. She wanted something for success, for grounding, for, warding off negative energies. And this crystal is absolutely perfect for that. Now, this is a bit of a fiddly bit, and you need to make sure that you are leaving enough room within the piece for your fiddle bead, so for your fidget bead to be able to spin, and you can see that I'm testing that there. I'm just fiddling with the weave that I've already done and making sure that's in the right place, and then I am fixing to the other side of the wire with a coil, with a single coil, and then I'm going to do several coils round up until the point where I've got enough space to then be doing the weave again, to start weaving back up the frame towards the top of the lightning bolt. Take your time getting this right, because if your bead don't fidget, there's not a lot of point in doing this piece really. So as you can see there, I am just coiling it round and round, and I am just keeping going until I get past the bead, so that I know that the bead has got enough room for it to do the job that it is doing in this piece, which is to fidget. It is to have somewhere for the wearer to have a nervous fiddle, to alleviate stress and anxiety, to really focus the energy. You can have meditation moments where you focus your energy, center your energy into the place that you are fiddling with this crystal. And at the same time, you're allowing the natural vibrations of the crystal to help you with whatever it is that you're doing. Okay, and then once you've got past the bead, you do want to start your weave, so it then becomes part of the piece. It becomes encapsulated within your weave. And I'm just going to speed that up again because you know the weave, you're already there, and hopefully you are making along and having a jolly old time making a piece of fidget jewellery. Once you've woven up the top of your lightning bolt, and you will start to feel like you're running out of wire, but if you've measured the 16 inches, you should have almost exactly the right amount for this. Make sure that you're letting the shape of the frame guide you. It's going to get a little bit tight, and once you get to a certain point, you will feel like, this weave isn't really working anymore. That's the point where we start to just change what we're doing a little bit. Make sure that whilst you are still doing the wire weave with the crisscross, that you are using your nails, or you might be using your pliers to just tighten that weave and make sure that it is consistent in look with the lower weave. So if you've done something that's a bit looser, then just go with it and do something that's a bit looser. Obviously, this is your piece and you are doing it your way. But for me, I was doing it quite tightly, and that's how I like my design. So I've just been making sure that I am tightening it down and making sure the coils are kind of as closely packed as possible. Okay, we are getting to a point where the frame is coming together. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to stop going in between the wires, and we're going to start just doing a wrap around the outside of the frame. As you can see, doing this really tight bit of weaving at the top is really tricky. I only feel confident doing it because I have done this design a few times, and I've cultivated a way of doing that, but please don't feel like you have to do that. And now I am literally just coiling the last of that wire around the two pieces of frame wire until I get to the end of that wire, and with my pliers I'm just going to flatten that end right down. Make sure it's flattened nice and tight, and from here we are going to make our bail. So check that your fidget is working, placing your thumb right at the top of the weave, bend the frame wires about a 45-degree angle backwards from the front of your design. And then I'm using a 6-step bail maker here. You can use a round nose plier or a pencil or anything round, and we're just going to bring those frame wires forward and split them around kind of the base of the frame, and we're just going to push them around the back and work them into capturing the pendant part. As you can see, I am using my pliers to do that because the frame wire is obviously thicker and therefore it's a little bit more difficult to maneuver. And there you have pretty much finished your bail. On one of the strands there, I'm just clipping it down and I am just going to flatten that end in. Remember, this is jewellery people will be wearing, so make sure you tuck, 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 tuck. If you need to, get something to sand the edges down. Always have a feel. When I'm doing this particular type of bail, I always try to kind of cover the end of the lower piece with the top one, tuck it in, or as you can see here, I'm actually using my pliers and I'm just making a very small little kind of curly Q shape. Spirals and curls are kind of signature within my work. So if you see one of my pieces, there's probably going to be a curl somewhere in there. I think it's a really interesting way of including a symbol of the nature of the cosmos and the nature of the universe, and that it is continuous, it never ends, and it always keeps going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know what you think. If you make your own or a different version, I would really love to see it. You can connect with me over on Instagram, and if you're not subscribed already, please hit that button and hit like.